Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think I should thank you for staying on to this late session for the presentation. I've been asked to talk about best practice in safety, regulation and risk management. As we're running a little bit late, I'll try and speed up a bit, but feel free to contact me afterwards or ask me questions. In terms of the contents of the presentation, after a brief introduction, I'd like to talk about safety integration, the two different aspects which are predominant in terms of safety, which I call project and state. Some of the benefits that can be derived from the integration of these approaches, and to complete with a short summary. In respect of introduction, railway systems, I think we would all recognize, are very complex. They involve new technology, they involve integration of a great number of systems. If I look at Dubai Metro, we had almost 40 major systems and probably about another 50 or 60 subsystems, so almost 100 subsystems in operation. All of these have to be integrated together. We're talking about high energy, high performance systems where we have to integrate software standards, legal requirements, regulatory requirements, and also consider human factors within this and the operational rules and procedures. So a complex environment, which means that we will, unfortunately, complexity does equal risk. We will have risk in terms of when we're developing the projects, in terms of the construction risk. We have risks in the project when we are doing testing and commissioning, and then the primary risk, which when we are in operations. For an organization or an owner or the government, it can also mean financial risk, reputational risk, which is also very fundamental. Operational risk, no one likes to have delays for their system, no one likes to have their system down. And then also the compliance with the regulatory environment. So all of this is a high-risk environment, I guess, you could look at it that way. So what we think is the best approach for integration is when we look at safety, we do have two different aspects, two different viewpoints. We have the state aspect from the regulator's perspective, and then we have the project aspect in terms of the people building the railway and commissioning the railway. We believe that both of these can work together, they can work in harmony, but we do have to understand that both approaches do have a different perspective initially when you look at it. If you look at it from a state perspective, we're there to provide a truly independent viewpoint. We're there to protect the public. We have no commercial gain. We might charge fees for the activity, but we don't have commercial gain. And we look at the big picture in terms of the integration with other means of transport and other developments in the country. A project, as anyone who's worked on a project, is driven in a different way. It's driven by time, it's driven by budget, it's driven by return and profit, it's driven by quality, and to a certain extent it's driven by the desires and needs of the owners and stakeholders. So sometimes it can look or appear as though these approaches are in opposition, but we believe that they can be complementary and work together in an integrated way. What do I mean by best practice in terms of project and operations? I think anyone who's worked on a big railway project, it's fairly standard now. We use the EN 50126 standard, which it looks at safety and RAMs, but we'll focus on safety here. It looks at safety from concept through system definition, risk analysis, requirements, apportionment, design and implementation, manufacture, through to installation, validation, testing, commissioning, trial operations, and into an operation stage. And it even considers the decommissioning stage as well. During this process, we will have a continuous series of risk identification, hazard analysis activities, and as is for us anyway, in the blue, we implemented two primary safety cases. We call them the operational safety case and the engineering safety case, which led to certificates from the regulator in the form of an operational safety certificate and a delivery safety certificate. The delivery safety certificate obviously focused on, was the as-built fit for purpose, was it safe for purpose, and the operations safety certificate focused more in terms of the operator's safety management system. Would he be able to operate the railway in a safe manner? Detailed analysis in terms of project or operation safety analysis, it could include FAMICA, failure modes affected criticality analysis, hazard analysis, safety case, CBA cost-benefit analysis, LARP, the as low as reasonably practical principle, value engineering, VEs, safety critical items list, coupled with deterministic safety assessment, compliance with standards and norms, and then having a good safety management system. So this is what I would call a kind of generic approach to project or operation safety. Coupled with that is also, which the previous speakers have talked about, is an overview from the Independent Safety Assessor, the ISA. From a state perspective, what we consider as best practice is a combination of certification and regulation. By certification, we mean that we control the risk pre-operation, and by regulation, we control the risk post-operation. By doing this, we believe, as a state regulator, we will achieve a safe railway. Just to clarify, in terms of terminology, what we use as definitions, certification is a formal written authorization by a government or its agency for a transport surface operation to begin commercial operation. So not by the ISA, not by a company, not by someone hired by the project, but by the state. And regulation is the control of operations in accordance with mandatory laws and standards. In terms of what we consider the safety regulation authority requirements, we consider our role is to perform safety due diligence on behalf of the state. We don't follow or are limited by any contract or stakeholder vested interest. We take into account the safety arguments of all parties, the contractor, the consultant, the owner, the operator, and the independent safety assessor, but we make the final decision in terms of is the system safe to go into operation service. We make the final check to certify, as I said, prior to operational service, and we provide ongoing regulation to ensure provisions of safety certifications are maintained. We also try and incentivize and facilitate continuous safety innovation and improvement. So we do have standards, but we don't mandate, and we try and not restrict the railway industry coming with new and innovative solutions in terms of development and application. A little bit about, and I'll use examples, I think is probably the best way to talk about safety integration between what I call this project and state aspect. This is an example from Dubai Metro. This is the what I'd call the pre-regulation project stage. So at this point, there was no regulations in place. There were contracts in place. The RTA, under the chairman, His Excellency Masar Attire, had allocated a rail agency to deliver the Dubai Metro project. In turn, the rail agency had contracted with an independent safety assessor, an engineer, and a contractor to deliver. And very early in the project also, we also contracted with Serco to act as the operator or the shadow operator. And there were a number of safety-related committees that were ongoing. Now, during that process, there was a level of consultation between RTA, and at that time, we also brought in the Office of Rail Regulation from the UK, the Rail Accident Investigation Branch from the UK, and it was agreed that there needed to be a level of state-level regulation. Now, there was already a body in terms of the rail agency set up who were basically controlling the technical aspects, the system aspects of the project. But it was decided there should be another body, which was called which we called under the law is called the Railway Safety Regulation Authority, which is effectively my department, the Safety Risk Regulation and Planning Department under RTA. Go back, sorry. Yeah, so this department was established, and our primary duty was just that under law, was to regulate the railway to ensure that we could issue certificates. And something that's quite often forgotten is that we were also there to investigate accidents and improve and monitor safety when we envisaged the railway would actually be in operation. This changed basically the project structure. It meant that the regulator was established here. It then meant that the railway agency had to make an application for the assets, and the operator Serco also had to make an application to operate the railway. And then we, as a Safety Regulation Authority, made the final review of the project and made an advisement in terms of a certificate to the chairman and the board that the railway could go into service. Just a quick snapshot in terms of how that worked out. And fundamental to all of this is when we talk either project or state, we're all talking a common language. We're talking risk. How best to control the risk to both the project and the operations, and how best to protect the state and the owners. If you look at the top line in terms of the delivery safety certificate, we started with a taking over phase from our engineer. We had takeover, we had SODP, we had the approvals DCD from the Dubai Civil Defence, so the fire approvals. We had the engineering safety case delivered by Dole, our contractor, and then we had the ISA report. So you can see the ISA reports did not form the end of the project, which was a question that was asked. It was an input to the certification process. We then had the taking over certificate, and then the rail agency made a formal application to the regulator, which was my department, and then we processed that in terms of a certification report and then granted a delivery safety certificate. There's often a question asked, which is why are you not completely separate outside of RTA? And there was a simple explanation to that. At the time, in terms of the Emirate of Dubai, there was only one law which applied to the transportation sector. RTA was the authority vested with the regulatory powers. So it was decided to create the regulator under the RTA umbrella, but administratively to separate it. So I report to a different CEO, so there's a rail agency CEO, and I report to the strategy and corporate governance CEO under RTA. The operation safety certificate took a very similar path. We had the trial test reports, the ISA reports again, an application from Serco as the operator, leading to the operation safety certificate. If I use another very recent case study, I could use Dubai Tram Law. This is, we've been working on this over the past 1 year. So when we looked at this, we were introducing Dubai Tram. We had to look at what were the safety issues and hazards, how should they be controlled, do the current laws, or was the project able to cover it, and if the current requirements did not meet it, then what were the gaps? By doing this, we came to a conclusion that, we looked at particularly the third-party hazards such as collision, adjacent works, service disruption, fire, suicide, vandalism. We realized there were a number of measures that had to be put in place, which were not measures that were covered by the project. They could only be covered by the regulator or by a law. For example, to give the tram a priority on the roads, to have fines and penalties associated with the tram when it was in operation, to control the rail right-of-way, the ROC, to have a process to ensure that the tram driver and the vehicle had some form of licensing. We then cross-linked it to the current law, the current requirements, current legislations, and we came out with a series of gaps that were present. For example, the tram had no priority under the current law, under the federal law or the local emirate law. There was no process for incident accident investigation. There was no priority given for blue light services when interfacing with the tram. There was no priority given for blind or disabled people in association with the tram. Issues such as third-party insurance and things like awareness campaigns. So by doing that process, then we came to a conclusion that we needed a new law. And this is highlighted in green, which is called the Tram Regulation. In fact, I'm pleased to report that in January, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum signed into law under Regulation 1 of 2014 a new tram regulation for the Emirate of Dubai. This basically, it links to interfaces to the federal traffic law. It accepts and authorizes a tram to be a vehicle, an official vehicle on the road. It's supported by a number of administrative decisions which are currently being processed at the Executive Council level, and a number of operational guidance documents such as the tram protection guidelines given in orange there. So this is basically the third specific or unique piece of legislation that we have for railways in the Emirate. Under the key principles of this law, it will allow, it covers both the Dubai and free zones, because we always like to cover the future situation, because some of the free zones have been talking about building their own railways within their zones. It defines the tram right-of-way and shared spaces. It defines the tram as a vehicle under the federal law. It gives powers for driver licensing and vehicle identification. I mean, for example, if you had a car has an accident with a tram, what do you put in the police report? You need to have a methodology to be able to identify the driver and the tram vehicle. It puts duties on both the operator and the maintainer. It defines the right-of-way as a special lane, and it gives priority in terms of obstructing the tram right-of-way as an offence. Some of the examples with the tram law, as I mentioned, it gives the priority to police vehicles and ambulances, emergency vehicles. Interestingly, there was also a concern about military vehicles, so even in the law, it also mentions that the military vehicles have priority. Tram drivers can be asked to be stopped by the police officer and have to follow police's direction. The police can intervene when, for example, traffic signals are down and redirect road traffic and the tram. We've created an offence to obstruct and block the tram right away. We've created requirements for the tram operator and the maintainer to have to ensure unobstructed access to the tram right away. And we also have a system to ensure that, for example, if you start to build a new apartment block next to the tram, what are the requirements that you have to be cognizant of, and you have to obtain a no objection certificate from the RTA to ensure that you're not going to interfere with the tram operation or could introduce any risk to the tram operation. But as with all laws, if you want to make it stronger, you have to have offences and fines recorded. So now under the law there are specific offences and fines for obstructing the tram right away, for ensuring if you enter an area which is marked prohibited or fenced off, you can be held liable. If you cross the tram right away other than where there's a designated place, you can be held liable, and the police have been given authority under that law to enforce these. We found at RTA in terms of benefits, there's been an interesting development, I would say, in terms of, because we base this all on risk, we also at the same time as the regulation environment was developing, we were also developing our enterprise risk management system. So what's actually happened is that the enterprise risk management system has become like an engine for the entire organization. So we're able to look at health and safety risks, operational risks, crisis management related risks, business continuity risks, security risks, risks that come from our accident investigations, from system safety analysis and certifications. We're able to look at this in an integrated way as one platform. So this has been a significant benefit to us in terms of the organization development. Just to use an example here, if we have an accident which occurs on the railway, we normally start, in our enterprise risk management system, we would normally try and identify the risk. We'd have attempted to identify the mitigation measures. Those mitigation measures means that we would have also then identified the emergency plans, contingency plans, and even business continuity plans. So if during the event we can look back into our risk registers, see how we should handle it, and post-event, when we have the accident investigation, we can look back to see what we thought would happen and how did the plans work, did something not go right, and do we have to change and do we have to improve. I've structured this slide because I wanted to show that ultimately safety, it's not about state regulation, it's not about project safety, it's not about the ISA, it's not about inspections, it's not about standards, it's not about the safety case, it's not about operational procedures, it's actually all of it. If you don't bring it together and you don't have it talking and you don't look at a holistic picture for this, it won't work. So yes, we do our job as a regulator, but we know that every day out there on the railway, people are applying operational procedures to control the safety of the situation. So it's got to be looked at that way as an integrated, holistic picture. And just to close in summary, oh, that's not me. Hello? Okay. So, yeah. In summary, has the approach been successful? Did the certification environment that we established? Well, yes, I think so. We've had 4 lines certified to date. The biometric was not the first. It was actually the Palm Jumeirah transit system, the monorail, in April 2009. The biometric red line is 999. The biometric green line is September 2011. And most recently, the Dubai Airport People Mover. And that's an interesting example because in that project we were involved fairly late as a regulator. And there was an interesting relationship because when you come in late into the project always believes that you're going to cause trouble for them and cause issues. We worked, as we said to them when we came in as a regulator, we're not here to cause you issues. We're here to ensure the safety of the system. We're here to help you to ensure that that objective is met. So when it came to the next project, we were asked by Dubai Airport to be involved from the conception and design phase, which is scheduled to be delivered in end of 2014. And currently we're also working on the Dubai Tram regulation certification cycle. So in closing, risk is the foundation block. If we do this integration correctly using a risk-based approach, not having project and state opposing each other, having them integrated, we can ensure the physical assets are fit for purpose, we can ensure risks are controlled, and we have an independent perspective on that. We can ensure the safety management system is acceptable. We can ensure the basic legal requirements and standards are being satisfied. The commitments to safety, it continues during the operation and maintenance period. We have processes to independently look at incidents and accidents, and we can derive the side benefits from risk integration. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.